What a day. Well, really, what a night yesterday. Basically, all of the autism communities online that I'm part of were blowing up, talking about Sia and the trailer for her movie Music that is coming out in February. Basically, everyone that was talking about it was pretty upset. I hadn't seen it yet. In fact, I hadn't even heard about it. And then I started seeing the tweets that were being basically screen captured and posted from YouTube to Facebook, Instagram, because I'm not really on Twitter. I go on Twitter like once a week and look around, and finally I decided to watch it for myself. The things that were on Twitter were upsetting and wrong, and her response on Twitter was obviously upsetting. I was curious though what the actual trailer was like, because sometimes the responses to things aren't necessarily what my response would be. So I wanted to see what my response would be to the trailer for anyone who hasn't paid attention and who has no idea what's going on. Basically, there is a movie that's coming out in February, and the main character is a autistic woman, girl, and she is being played by a neurotypical actress. And I guess originally there was a autistic woman who's going to play this part. The part is a nonverbal woman, and the caretaker is played by Kate Hudson. The autistic woman is played by Maggie, from Dance Moms. I can't remember her last name. I just don't pay attention to these things. I know Kate Hudson because it's from before, a long time ago. I used to pay attention to these things and actually watch movies in theaters and stuff like that. The kids actually watch the video and they all have a lot to say. Sadie especially has a lot to say, and she actually begged me to make a video of her own, which is going to cut way down on what you're actually going to hear from me. For anyone who's new here, my name's Cammie. I'm autistic, my husband's autistic, and it looks like all 5 of our kids are autistic. 4 have been diagnosed and the 5th is in the process of being diagnosed, and after the neuropsych eval, the psychiatrist told me she's certain he's autistic too, but we're waiting for the second round of results to come through, I think like next week. I think it is actually right after Thanksgiving. So anyways, let's go back to what we're actually talking about, since I'm getting distracted by all the sounds out there because ADHD. But they originally started from everything I've seen with an autistic actress, and they said it was too hard for her, too stressful for her. It would have been too cruel to keep going with her. So they dropped her and they went with a neurotypical actress. But here's where it gets really messy, is because then Twitter exploded and people were saying you could have found another autistic actress. There's a lot of them out there. So an actress tweeted and said, there's a lot of us who are autistic who would have loved to take the part on short notice. I'm paraphrasing here, obviously, because I don't have it right in front of me. And she responded and said, well, maybe you're just bad actresses, which was really uncalled for. But also, like, just why would you say that? Like, and then she also tweeted at some point saying, oh yeah, she was in contact with Autism Speaks to like make sure it was all okay, which was Sadie's going to talk about that more. When Sadie actually first heard that in a thing she was watching, she literally facepalmed. Like, her reaction was like to literally smack herself in the face. So I went and watched the movie. My expectations going in were pretty much like, let's see what this is like, and I went from just really uncomfortable to kind of sick to my stomach. When I was watching it, it was hard for me to put my finger on what made me feel so incredibly uncomfortable when I was watching it. Whenever Maggie was on acting, playing this part, it made my stomach physically feel sick, and I was trying to figure out why that was. Afterwards, I got off and I was just scrolling through Facebook, not trying to think about this at all, because I was feeling pretty sick about it. And then I saw this Twitter like screenshot from Fidget and Fries, at Fidget and Fries, from Tiffy. I follow her on Facebook. One of her tweets summed up the way that I was feeling. If you don't follow her, you should, at least on one of the platforms, because she's really good. And she said, no, I do not care for Sia's response to an autistic person, an actor who voiced legitimate criticism for her casting decision. Maybe you're not a good actor. No, I do not wish to watch an able-bodied actor wear my stims like itchy clothes, a caricature of my being. And that, to me, really summed up, I think, that sick feeling that I got when I was watching it. I think in part it's that it was just like slightly off, just enough off that it's like how, it looks a lot of the time when we're being mocked. It's that when Sadie was little, she got bullied a lot. She got bullied. I mean, the first time I started being afraid for her was when she was 4 and we were at a playground with some friends. The little girl started to get like annoyed with her because she really wanted to be friends with her, and they played together in the past, but now there were other kids around, and this little girl didn't want to play with her now that her other friends were there, and she tried to push her off this like 6-foot play structure, and it was like because she flapped non-stop all the time. At like 4, these 4 and 5 and 6-year-olds were like a little bit weirded out by the fact that she was like all the time. Flapping is a stim that I've had, but that I really quickly, usually when I'm cold or really happy, it's something that I would do that I learned a long time ago not to do. Instead, I would like press on my fingers like this against a table, or press on my toes inside my shoes, or flex my muscles over and over again. I remember once in high school sitting in a chair and I was flexing my muscles over and over again and looking over and seeing a guy make fun of me in English class, and the girl sitting next to him was laughing. And that was 1999, so more than 20 years ago. And I still remember that moment perfectly in my mind. I have a mind that I can remember words, like see words and remember them totally clearly, but I can hardly ever remember images. Like, I can't picture things in my mind. I don't hold pictures in my mind ever, but that image is seared in my mind to this day. Probably one of the only images in my mind that is like seared there that I can see all the time, which is really unfortunate. There's so many other examples. Like, I talk here so much about being accepting of STEMs, and you see our lives now, and I'm so encouraging of them, and I love to see Sadie flap. But like when she went to school in 2nd grade, she was punched in the face. She was shoved in the dirt and the mud and spit on, and ultimately we pulled her out of that school. I can't tell you how many times she came home and told me she had been punched by boys, bullied, mostly by girls, but punched by boys. And there were meetings, but I can't tell you really that anything seemed like it was done. The last time she was punched in the face by a boy on a trip to the zoo, she put her face through one of those little like zoo cutout things to get her picture taken, and a boy came over and punched her in the face. And the last conversation I had with one of the teachers, and she said he probably liked her, and we pulled her out of school. We gave up and pulled her out of school. When you have a kid who stims and with a speech delay, it's like other kids immediately, as soon as they see them, it sets them apart, and bullies just come for them. And I used to try to coach Sadie on like, it's totally fine. It's fine to flap at home, but not at school. And she was so confident and so sure of herself, and she'd be like, Mom, there's nothing wrong with flapping. I'm fine. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not hurting anyone. And she was right. I was so scared for her. Like, when we put her in public school is so much more proactive about protecting her. And so I guess that's, for me, part of it was seeing this and then reading that thing, and it kind of clicked in my head. Part of why it bothers me so much is seeing a neurotypical actor put it on like a costume. It probably bothers me a lot more for my kids, for myself, especially after spending so many years being so afraid. Sometimes things are done with the best intentions and they still turn out horribly. And what I saw in a lot of the groups I was in was that people seemed more hurt by this because a lot of the people in the groups I was in love Sia. They were talking about how she has Ehlers-Danlos, and you know, they relate to her. For those who don't know, there's a lot of overlap between Ehlers-Danlos and autism. And so a lot of people love her music, look up to her, relate to her, and this felt like a sort of betrayal. People make mistakes. A lot of times it's how you respond to those mistakes, and I mean, there's always a chance to turn things around. Hopefully Sia will start to listen to all these autistic voices and think about what they're saying, and move away from what Autism Speaks has told her is a good idea, and maybe make some changes. I don't know if this is like a totally done deal. I'm guessing maybe it is because it's out in February, so I'm guessing that this thing is finished, but I don't know. Who knows? Anyways, so I've talked more than enough. I told Sadie, so there's this movie coming out. It's about an autistic woman, and originally they hired a autistic actress, and then they said it was too stressful for her, and they hired a neurotypical actress. In the video you're about to see, this is a neurotypical woman playing a autistic actress. I tried to not color it for her because I wanted to see her reaction to this. And I didn't want to let my opinion influence her. And a lot of times Sadie's opinion is different than my own because Sadie is 12. She wants to have a different opinion than her mom. So I just tried to say it straight out and not let my perception cloud hers. So I just said that and then I played it for her. I could tell like by the end that she was angry. Strong opinions. And I'm gonna let her say it because I think she said it better than I could. That's what you're gonna see now. Sadie, who's 12 and has strong opinions about everything almost. And here she is. In case you missed it earlier, Sadie is autistic. She has ADHD and she has very strong opinions. Here she is.